Hello class, today we are going to be talking about biochemistry, so the chemistry of living things and talking about what life is made of. Today, if you are following along in your book, it is chapter 3, section 3. The first thing we're going to look at is kind of doesn't have a place to fall in this category today, but we want to make sure that we cover it, and that is ATP. You will see this come up in many other chapters when we talk about photosynthesis and we talk about other living things and how we take in energy. So if you notice here, the word is adenosine triphosphate, and that's where we get our ATP from. All of life's functions require energy, and so this is the energy compound that is in cells. You just need to know it. It doesn't fall into our next set of category, but you need to know it. So our four molecules of life are carbohydrates, which you may recognize as sugars, proteins, and you might realize those are like in meat and milk products, lipids, which are fats, and nucleic acids, which are found in DNA and RNA. Okay, so if we look at these again, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, we take in, and it's part of our nutrition. And the goal is that you take those in reasonable amounts, and you would take all three of them in at some point in your diet. There are different diets out there that try to eliminate carbohydrates or eliminate fats completely, but those aren't necessarily healthy. Our body needs all of those to stay healthy. So if we look at each of these and categorize the monomer for each of these, you will need to know this. Carbohydrates are called monosaccharides, and mono again is single, and saccharide is sugar, so it's a single sugar. Proteins, the monomers are called amino acids. Lipids are called fatty acids, and nucleic acids are called nucleotides. Now, when we get into the next section, we'll review a little bit about how monomers become polymers. And that process, we'll write back up here. So the process of monomers to polymers. This was yesterday's notes. You can go back and listen to those if you need to get the whole the complete story about it, but we'll just review. Monomers to polymers happens by condensation reaction. Now you need to know that process, so be sure you go back to yesterday's notes if you are unsure of that process. The process of polymers to monomers is the opposite, which is hydrolysis. So in condensation reaction, a water is removed and it allows the monomers to link up. In hydrolysis, a water is added and it causes the molecules to break apart and to go back to their monomers. Okay, carbohydrates are monosaccharide is the monomer. It's a simple sugar. Some examples of those are fructose, which is a fruit sugar. Galactose, which is a milk sugar, and then glucose is maybe the one you think of most often. It's kind of like what you'd have in candy or something like that. The formula for all of these is C6H12O6. So it's kind of unique that they can all have the exact same chemical formula but be different types of sugars, and it's because their actual chemical makeup or appearance, their look, is different for each of them. The way they are bonded is different. Disaccharides are double sugars, so two monomers linked together. An example of that is sucrose or table sugar. If you take in a disaccharide, your body has to put in a little energy to break that apart, whereas a monosaccharide can be immediately used as energy. And to review again how these are put together, we have a monosaccharide here, glucose, and a monosaccharide here, fructose. We would take the H from one side and the OH from the other side, and that becomes a water molecule. And when that happens, this bond forms. And that is how we would get sucrose, a disaccharide. And sucrose, here's the chemical formula for that, so you can see what that looks like. Again, this is an example of condensation reaction. If you want to draw any of that into your notes, it may help you to remember it. Whatever will help you to remember which one is which, condensation reaction and hydrolysis. If you are drawing it, you don't really need to write in all of these compounds and chemical formulas, just the idea of the shape, so maybe just this, just to show you what it's doing and what it looks like. Okay, to go a little more complex, we have polysaccharides, and those are 3 or more monomers that are put together. Examples of those are starch and cellulose in plants and glycogen in animals. So this is how plants and animals store extra sugar. Starch, if you want to think about some things that have starch, that would be pastas and breads. Cellulose, just a good place to think of this is celery. It's made up of cellulose. Crunchy, it's mainly makes up the stems of plants and the kind of a crunchy thing. We actually, as humans, cannot break down cellulose, so it's actually just fiber in our body. Glycogen is the way we store extra carbohydrates or sugars. So we take our glycogen and, or we take our carbohydrates and store them as glycogen in our muscles. Okay, our second molecule of life is proteins. And proteins have a monomer of amino acid. There are 20 of them, 20 different ones. The bond that holds them together are peptide bonds, so each amino acid is held together by a peptide bond. You will need to know that later, and we'll talk about it again in chapter 10. And then a polypeptide is a chain of amino acids, so just a really long chain of amino acids. Okay, so some places that proteins are used: muscle, skin, hair, and then a big key one today that we're going to talk about are enzymes. And enzymes are crucial to our body. We'll show that here on the next couple slides. Okay, enzymes, if you're putting in a definition here, basically what it does is increase the rate of a biochemical reaction, makes the chemical reactions happen faster. Okay, so in our body, we have to digest things, we have to have lots of chemical reactions taking place, and if we don't have enzymes, then those reactions would take a really long time to occur. So enzymes are crucial to the function of living things. Enzymes can also be called a catalyst, where it increases the reaction, increases the speed of the reaction. Okay, we're going to take a look now at a little animation to show how enzymes work. And this way you can watch this a couple different times. Okay, so you can see, let me go back to the notes here. I'm sorry. You can see how that process works, and it's shown here in this picture as well, that we have an active site here. Let's see if I can get the pen to show up again. It's not wanting to show up. So we have an active site here at the enzyme location here. We had a substrate that came in, and in this particular one, the substrate was one large molecule, and then after the enzyme worked, it broke it down into two separate products. So basically, enzymes just speed up the reaction. We must have them in our body. If we didn't have them, we would not have chemical reactions happening fast enough. And what it does is take the activation energy and it lowers the activation energy. So normally this is showing what a reaction might need as far as the amount of energy, and normally it might need this much energy, which is called our activation energy, but with the enzyme we only need this much energy, and that is the key part. It speeds up the reaction. This can happen at a rate of 10 times per second, and there's an estimated 75,000 enzymes in the human body. Okay, enzymes can be affected by changes in pH and temperature, and an example, pepsin works best at a pH of 1 to 2. You'll be doing a virtual lab on that later on. To show you how enzymes can affect the human body, there's 3 examples here. The main one that you're probably familiar with is lactose intolerance, which is caused by a lack of the enzyme lactase, which helps digest the sugar lactose found in milk sugar. All right, lipids are fatty acids as a monomer, and we have a hydrophilic and a hydrophobic end. This means water-loving, and this means water-fearing. So it repels water, and the water-loving will attract water. We will see this in Chapter 5 more as we talk about the cell membrane. And to show you some of that here, where lipids are found, saturated fats are considered bad fats. Unsaturated fats are considered good fats. Phospholipids are the cell membrane. Waxes, you might notice that on, like if you have a dog, they have a waxy coating on their fur to keep them from getting too wet if they're out in nature. And then steroids, we have natural steroids in our body, estrogen and testosterone and others, but they're also the artificial steroids. And then nucleic acids, nucleotide is the monomer. It's found in the genetic material of DNA and RNA, and it carries out all the functions of the cell. So it helps to make proteins. It is your genetic information that makes you who you are. And that is the notes on the 4 molecules of life.